Hello, welcome to this week's edition of the Burn KC ScorchCast. I am your host, Alex Blackburn. It is great to be back. Last week we had to take a hiatus a little bit. Had a lot of stuff going on, from finals to the funeral of a close friend to just life in general. But hey, we're back. Articles will come back to their regularly scheduled programming or posting, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, we're here. We're still kicking, and thank you very, very much for all of your patience, all of your kind words and support throughout this whole ordeal of a week. It's been a ride, but I appreciate you all sticking with me, and just kind of understanding that life happens. And as important as this is, my podcast, my blog, life comes first. And again, I appreciate you all for understanding and for hanging with me through this kind of rough patch that we got. But like I said, as far as I know, everything else will be ran as scheduled. So fret not, we're here. Let's get started. Got a pretty loaded show ahead, given the fact that I did not do one last week. Got some college basketball news to go over, Sporting Kansas City, some KC Current news, some Royals stuff, some Blues stuff, and a few minor Chiefs things. I'm not going to go into too much with the Chiefs. Rookie minicamp just started. I mean, that's pretty much the only news that the Chiefs have had. Post-draft, I'm, could have gone into maybe a little more with draft numbers and all that, but I kind of went in on that last ScorchCast. If you want to know more of my thoughts on that, just go watch that. This is kind of going to be dedicated to the transfer portal / recruiting of college basketball, as well as some spring sports news. So let's get started. All right, kicking off the show, basically, as always, with some college basketball news. Let's start with KU because they've kind of had the most going on as of recent. Uh, Maybe that's just because I'm in kind of the KU insider information thing or whatever. But and I went to KU, blah blah blah. But I've just seen the most KU news as of late. K State and Mizzou haven't really done a ton, but we've got some decent decent KU news. Ernest Uday's gone. That poses and Zubia Ejiofor is gone as well. That poses kind of a big issue for KU. With Hunter Dickinson, the number one transfer in the nation right now, comes some backlash, but I think more than expected from the Jayhawks. Ernest Uday, their who was supposed to be at least their backup big, the sophomore, has transferred with 3 years of eligibility left, maybe 4 even now that I think about it. So now what? Uh, it's kind of tough to say because, frankly speaking, Uday can still come back, Ejiofor can still come back. Um, you're looking at Kevin McCullough as well as potential to return. Everybody else is pretty much just gone. Uh, but it's tough to say. KU's got 2 scholarships that they have to fill, and there's really not a whole lot of people that they can fill them with. Um, at least that's likely to be filled. They're still looking at that North Dakota State guy, no, it's not Grant Williams. It's Grant Nelson, I think. Let me clarify that. Grant. Yes, Grant Nelson. Grant Nelson is a name that's being thrown around. He was the big for North Dakota State last year. Very mobile guy that can move around pretty nice, and is a really good post player, very physical. Um, just kind of, he's a more mobile big, but he's not Hunter Dickinson. Um, and him coming off the bench isn't entirely, it probably isn't what he would want to do. Um, so we'll kind of see, we'll keep an eye on that, but I have my doubts. Now that, Dickinson is here, they're probably gonna look at, someone in the transfer portal from even smaller schools, or potentially looking at the high school recruits for that one. But they have shoes to fill at the big position, at the five. Because I mean, I think we all saw what happened when KJ Adams played down low. It was fine, but it definitely could have been better. So we'll see where it goes from that front. KU also lost out on a guy that they really thought that they were going to get in Mackenzie Mbako. He ended up committing to Indiana, which, committing is one thing. Recruiting doesn't stop at committing; it stops after the player signs. And Mackenzie hasn't signed yet. So there's still potential there. Again, it's not likely, but there's still potential there. Um, he would have been the Jalen Wilson replacement in all likelihood. They're gonna have to find someone else for that. Um, and we'll see who that is exactly. KU's got a really young team right now. And it's a team full of transfers too, and a bunch of new faces. But this is where Bill Self proves his Hall of Fame status. He's never really had a completely new group before, not in recent years at least. So it's time to put up or shut up. Let's see if he can handle guys that aren't program guys, that will only be here for a year or two, or at least a year or two longer. So, but in other KU news, Frank Mason kind of, this is the final piece of KU news. Again, they had the most going on. Maybe that's because I'm part of the insider circle of KU. Um, Maybe not. Maybe K State and Mizzou just didn't have a whole lot going on, but KU certainly did. um, but Frank Mason, he made a post on Twitter that is kind of concerning. He had a lot of his awards and jerseys and a whole bunch of just memorabilia. Uh, it's getting auctioned off right now, without his permission. He was over in Europe when this news hit. He is currently in the process of trying to get that stuff back from the auctioneers. I believe they're called GF auctions or something like that. Um, and honestly, it's not a good situation. I mean, I don't, you know, it certainly doesn't seem like a situation that is entirely ethical, on the part of GF Auctions, at least. Maybe someone in Frank Mason's inner circle gave them permission, but in all likelihood, they probably just found this stuff in storage and decided to auction it off. But that stuff was in storage for a reason, so we'll see what goes on. A lot of KU insiders like Mike Vernon, Joe Davis, and others are speaking out on behalf of Frank Mason and trying to get this stuff back to Frank, which I'll put my hat in the ring too. I'll probably go retweet Frank Mason's post right after this broadcast, um, right after this recording rather, and get that resolved. That's just not great news to hear, especially with how successful Frank Mason was at KU. I mean, he was one of the greatest guards in KU history. He won National Player of the Year. So I hope that he can get his stuff back and think this situation can be rectified. So, um, moving on to some Kansas State news. Kansas State, really the only news that they had. um, Tyler Perry committed, not the actor and producer, director guy that did Medea and all that. Tyler with an O. Tyler Perry, transferred from North Texas, committing to Kansas State. Tyler Perry worked closely with, um, sorry, worked closely with um, Jerome Tang's staff. I believe one of his assistants was head coach at North Texas, and then he also um, played at Coffeyville Community College before going to North Texas, so he's got roots in Kansas. So this is a decent pickup for Kansas State. I believe he is the Marquise Noel replacement. Still no word on whether or not Keontae Johnson will make his way back. I think he declared for the draft, but didn't hire an agent. So he might just test the draft waters real quick and make his way back, but that's not guaranteed. He did pretty well last year, so it's a possibility that he does, in fact, have what it takes to get drafted. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. In terms of Mizzou, Mizzou's got a little bit. It's more or less just like what the roster will look like next year. And frankly speaking, that is to be determined. Kobe Brown right now is testing the draft waters, and he's climbing up boards. So there's a possibility he doesn't return, which could be huge for Mizzou. Obviously, they got Tamar Bates, Caleb Grill via the transfer portal, as well as I think one other guy, maybe. I'm not entirely positive on that. I'll have to look into that a little more. But Nick Honors coming back, which is good for them. But they do have quite a few transfers and quite a few guys going drafting. They had a pretty old roster this past year, so we'll see if the success of Dennis Gates continues. As for what the roster will look like, that's incredibly up in the air. Um, they're not going through as much of an overhaul as say KU is, but they're still going through a pretty significant overhaul. So we'll just have to keep an eye on that as well. There's a lot of speculation, but it is still early in the transfer portal and recruiting season. We still have an entire summer to get through before things get real. um, and that summer is shaping up to be a really, really eventful one. Um, One more thing on the Mako matter. Um, it was reported that Mark Cuban just invested some NIL money into the Indiana basketball program. Mark Cuban obviously is the owner of the Dallas Mavericks, as well as an Indiana University alum. He actually played rugby at Indiana and has given a lot of money to their rugby program. And honestly, that's probably why Mako um, committed to Indiana is because of that NIL money. I mean, that's the nature of the beast nowadays. It's a great thing, but it can be not so great if you're looking for program guys, developmental guys that just want to compete in terms of being that program guy and just sticking around for a bit, as well as just recruiting purposes and whatnot. So it's just kind of interesting to see what and how the NIL affects college athletics today. It's pretty interesting to see. So just kind of a little footnote to end on there for our college basketball segment. Let's jump into some sporting Kansas City news. All right, some sporting Kansas City news. They're finally winning. Who would have thunk that the return of Johnny Russell would have catalyzed that? Um, Johnny's old. Johnny knows this, right? He's an older player. He's been around the block for a while. Why is he playing so good? Well, Sporting Kansas City veteran actually making a difference for their team. Who would have thunk? And it isn't completely washed up. Who would have thunk? Uh, it's good news. It's good news. I need to not be bitter about this and just kind of enjoy the fact that Sporting Kansas City is returned to form a little bit. They're still not looking spectacular. They still have a lot of things they got to work on, but overall, it's looking all right. It's looking all right. Um, they beat Minnesota 3-0 last night, which is a pretty decent sized blowout in regard to soccer. Um, you got to ask yourself what changed. It can't just all be on a returning player from the injury list. I mean, one player does not make a difference on a soccer team. It doesn't. Soccer's a team sport. So what exactly changed? From what I've looked at least, and from what my girlfriend told me, the soccer connoisseur of the Burn KC, Miss Sarah Ben Ezra. What she told me and what the news kind of told me was Sporting Kansas City is excuse me, capitalizing on more scoring opportunities. I mean, they're finally realizing, oh wait, we can get the ball in the box and put the ball in net. Incredible, um, which is just something that they failed to do for the first few weeks of the season. I mean, they scored what 3 goals to this point, to the point of May. It was inexcusable then, and we were all just searching for answers. Um, I'm not gonna say entirely that the answers have been found because there's really no guarantee of that. Uh, it's only been a couple games. Uh, but another question we kind of have to ask in regard to Sporting Kansas City is that is Vermees still on the hot seat? I mean, Sporting Kansas City fans were chanting "Fire Vermees" at games, and now all of a sudden, that kind of turned around. So again, you kind of have to ask yourself what exactly changed here. I mean, did SKC actually listen to fans when they wrote when the Cauldron literally wrote a letter to them asking them, "Hey, like this product on the field is not good, so change it." And by all accounts so far, at least, it looks like they have. Um, is that through Peter Vermees per se? Not remains to be seen. He's a great soccer coach. He is, and I believe he definitely had a part in it. But again, it is still early in this little winning slash draw streak that SKC is on, that we honestly can't really tell until we kind of get through this month. Because by all accounts, there's a possibility that they could go back to losing like that. I mean, it's a rough year for Kansas City Spring Sports. As we will see with both the current and the Royals. Um, Everybody knows the Royals aren't that great. They haven't been great since 2015. But which is coming up on a decade right now, and that makes me feel incredibly old. But more on that later. Uh, Sporting Kansas City looks like they're back to old form, but again, it's kind of a wait and see situation. I would not put all my eggs in one basket just yet. Fans are going to start returning to games, which will be a plus. But can the product on the field stay consistent? Can the product on the field continue to score goals? Can the product on the field compete with the best in the MLS? Minnesota's not the best in the MLS. Minnesota's not great at all, to be real with you. And the teams that they've been facing, both in the U.S. Open Cup and in just MLS regular season play, are not anything spectacular. I mean, they're not LA, they're not Real Salt Lake, they're not these teams that are consistently good. They used to be. The Sporting Kansas City used to be one of those teams, but it's they're kind of falling off the wagon, as we've seen. Uh, so I don't think they're necessarily getting back on the wagon, but it is refreshing to see them finally start winning games, finally start scoring goals, and to have a more or less healthy roster. So we'll see if that continues. That's kind of my thoughts on Sporting Kansas City. I don't think Peter Vermees will get fired this year. Again, we got to wait and see on that. But again, it's it's refreshing to see them finally winning games and them the front office uh, kind of living up to the wishes of the Cauldron, because I think in soccer especially the fan opinion and the fan base opinion really matters. Um, and again, more than in most U.S. sports, because soccer is not huge over here. Um, I mean, so it does matter a little more, and yeah, there that kind of 12th man for soccer is incredibly important. Honestly, you look for a home field advantage in soccer. And yeah, American soccer atmospheres couldn't hold a candle to European ones, but I mean, they still matter. And with the Cauldron sending that message to that front office of, hey, us fans are dissatisfied, makes me kind of think, why can't we do the same thing for the Royals? I think everybody knows that answer, but it's kind of my thoughts on it, especially since the Royals are wanting a new stadium. But again, more on them later. Let's go into the current. All right, going into the Kansas City Current now, the women's professional team for soccer. They're looking better. They're looking better. They're still kind of some rough patches a little bit. They did lose to the Houston Dynamo, which are a really good program. So kind of no surprise there, but also, yeah, got them knocked out of the Challenge Cup, which kind of sucks. But there's more games to be won. They've been on a solid streak of good form and being competitive. Um, and they're certainly doing better than Sporting Kansas City. Um, it's it's the maturation of a new team. There was a lot of players lost free agency, a lot of players brought in due to free agency, and it's been an adjustment. But I think the current are finally adjusted. Um, are they going to be as good as they were last year? That remains to be seen. Again, it is still pretty early in the season. We'll just have to wait and see what happens. Um, but this team looks like the team of last year, where they are in good form and that they are winning games. So, in regard to organizational welfare, the Current's one of the best in the city, if not the best in the NWSL. Um, There's no doubt about it. Brittany Mahomes has done a fantastic job, along with the rest of that front office, um, in making this team competitive and making this team consistently competitive. They've only been around for 3 years, but it's a team that looks top tier in regard to the NWSL. And one of the main sources of proof on that is the stadium. Stadium's being built miraculously fast. They're already vertical on it, which means that their building stands. It's going vertical, um, and it's impressive. To watch this team, shatter NWSL attendance records, build this women's soccer exclusive stadium, the first of its kind, um, and just overall be revolution be revolutionaries in the sport of soccer, and it's awesome to see that happen in Kansas City, which is considered to be one of the soccer capitals of the United States. There's a reason the World Cup is coming here in 2026, which is super exciting, by the way. I've mentioned that before, but it's looking like the team that will be a mainstay in Kansas City sports, especially once they get their new stadium. So be excited. Come watch these women. They deserve your respect. I mean, this is a fantastically run organization, and if you actually give 2 cents about sports, notice how I said sense there. I'm censoring myself. Um, but seriously, if you actually give a rat's about sports, you can watch these women. Whatever your opinion is on women's sports, throw that out the window first and foremost. It's ridiculous. It's 2023. Yeah, women can play sports, and they can play sports at an elite level. Um, and frankly speaking, that's an incredibly archaic view. Um, but secondly, this team's fun to watch. I mean, I've been to Kansas City Current games. They're really, really fun. They're right up there with Sporting Kansas City games. They're right up there with Royals games. The only thing that really kind of beats them out around town is Chiefs games. And Chiefs games are getting super duper expensive. You can spend $18 a ticket for these KC Current games. $18 for one ticket. Not even the Royals can do that. And it's free parking. Like, come on! You can't ask for anything better. And the stadium food's affordable. Come watch these women. Speaking of which, the Blues Rugby is going to be having a tailgate for the upcoming Kansas City Current game on May 20th. I highly suggest if you like soccer, you come out and join us. Maybe, you know, throw the rugby ball around, catch a beer or two, and then catch the game. It'll be a lot of fun. We're going to be hosting a pretty nice tailgate out there. Highly recommend it. Just to, kick off seventh season. Again, more on that later. But I mean, I'm gonna be putting a poll out over the next couple of days, asking you guys if you want me, because I'll be going to not only this upcoming game, but the next game with my lovely girlfriend. We'll be going to both together, but I'll be going to the next two Kansas City Current games. I'm just wondering if you guys maybe, want to catch a live stream or live tweet or whatever of these upcoming Current games. I'd love to do that for y'all. Just let me know. I will be putting a poll out later this week. And yeah, just come have fun. Yeah, the Current aren't as good as they were last year, but they're getting there. And you know what? They're a team that wins. Same can't be said for the Royals. Let's get into them now. All right. As I said in the last section, we have to talk about the Royals. Love talking about the Royals. If you've watched the show for long enough, you know I love talking about the Royals. They're my favorite subject. Uh, and Mays looked all right so far. They dropped two against the Brewers. They're probably going to get swept. The Brewers are one of the better teams in the National League. This being said, they're not too far of crawling out of last place in the division. So that's plus. The White Sox suck this year too, which no one anticipated that. Everybody thought the White Sox were going to be competing for the division. Turns out they won't be. May has looked all right though. The Royals And May has also proven so far that the Royals have the talent to be a good team. They do. I know a lot of people are like, wait, what do you mean by that? They were dead last in basically every category during April. It's April. It's the start of baseball season with a completely new regime and a young roster. Yeah, I wasn't patient with them either. I talked a lot of crap about them over these past couple of weeks, but in all reality, it can be a lot worse. Um, but yeah, I mean, this is a team that is still developing. I think we all kind of anticipated that kind of, again, that wait and see stuff when it comes to the Royals, and we're gonna have to continue to do that probably for the rest of this year into next year. But May, offensively at least, has looked really, really good. I mean, they're first in on base percentage. They're like second and third among other offensive categories. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff going on with the Royals right now. I mean, it's not this Royals team that was playing in April. This is a team that is finally starting to at least have the wheels turning. Um, will they, you know, continue to lose games? Yeah, of course they will. It's the Royals. um, but they'll start winning and they'll start improving. And that's what you can ask for with this season. I said at the very beginning of the season, do not expect the Royals to make the playoffs. If they do make the playoffs, it's a complete fluke. It's an awesome fluke, but it's a complete fluke. And we're seeing it right now. We're seeing the Royals team that I predicted um, play. They're still making questionable moves. I don't think Austin Cox should have been sent back down to AAA. I think Brady Singer should be sent back down to AAA. Um, and there's a ton of other pitchers that could have been sent down. Brad Keller, first and foremost, uh, that we're doing worse than Austin Cox. I mean, Austin Cox got one game and he threw really, really well. So I don't understand why exactly he got pulled. And, you know, good on the Royals for making some moves with the batting order. Like, thank God they got Nick Prado up. And finally sent down, Franmil Reyes and Freddie Fermin. But why is Hunter Dozier still there? He's just sitting there, not doing anything. And you've got some lineup stuff that needs fixing as well, like fielder stuff. Defensively, it's still more of the same from April, but offensively, it's looked a lot better. I think they're finally starting to see the lineup that gets people on base and gets runs in. Now they just got to fix the defensive woes and fix the pitching. Which I think part of that is saying bye bye to Hunter Dozier and hopefully welcoming in some halfway decent talent. Um, the whole trading for that Phillies pitcher, I think didn't we trade someone halfway decent for him that was actually doing pretty well in the minors? I'm pretty sure it was. I can't remember names off the top of my head, but I mean, it was a minor league pitcher for a guy that, was proving that he doesn't need to be playing in the minor leagues, especially with a team this young and this developmental, such as the Royals. Um, but enough about the bad stuff in regard to pitching and defensive work. We've sung the praises of their offense. Their offense again has looked a lot better. They're finally scoring runs. I mean, yeah, they lost in against the Brewers, but they put 3 runs or more on the board. Eh, Something. They scored 6 today. Just the Brewers scored 9. So yeah, some defensive woes, but some good news defensive wise. Zach Greinke, longtime Royal, went up through the Royals farm system. Definitely kind of one of those program guys that have, yeah, he moved on from the Royals, and has been kind of a journeyman since. He certainly hasn't been a bad pitcher, because he wouldn't have achieved this milestone if he was a bad pitcher. But Zach Greinke over this past weekend achieved 1,000 strikeouts. So congrats to Zach Greinke. I know you were a part, really have only been a part of some really, really bad Royals teams. But much love to you, man. You're a great pitcher, and you're a great personality too. I love Zach Greinke. He's just kind of apathetic, poignant personality. It's just like I'm a grizzled veteran at this point. I'm used to I'm used to being on some loser teams. But I'm gonna ride through it and I'm gonna do my best. So kudos to him. Kudos to that milestone, that career milestone. Enjoy it. You deserve it. Thank you for sticking with Kansas City for so long. So that's where I will end the Royals segment on a good note. No, those are kind of sort of on the up and up. So let's cheer them on, folks. Let's cheer on the team that we can't watch. Sorry. I'm getting back into the bad stuff. My apologies. All right, some Blues news, some minor news, and then the outro. Let's get started. Blues first sevens practice is starting this Tuesday, May 16th. It'll be out at Indian Hills Middle School. It'll be a great time. Looking forward to getting back out onto the pitch with the guys. It's been a long time coming. I unfortunately had to miss the Wichita game because of a wedding, but it was one of my good friends' weddings, so kind of had to. Congrats to Patrick and Alicia, by the way. Um, but yeah, Summer Sevens is starting. Summer Sevens, you know, my body doesn't like it, but my soul likes it. It's fun. It's fun going out to tournaments and you know having a great time with your guys, playing some rugby, just kind of all day. And sevens tournaments are fun. They're a lot of fun. They're kind of rugby culture, um, almost at its peak. Um, So they're a great time. It's just incredibly taxing on the body in terms of us big fellas. It's not fun. It's not fun being big and playing sevens. It's not. It kind of is. Boy sevens is kind of fun. Boy sevens is a lot of fun actually. It's nice, you know, not being hosted by a guy, that runs a 4.40. And just being there with the rest of your big fellas, just having a great time. It's great. But let's go into the teams, the qualifier one and qualifier two teams. The teams that will be competing for a sevens national title, teams that will be the best of the best in regards to sevens rugby. Some potential standouts include, or not limited to, Gavin Kirk. Gavin Kirk's looking real good. He's got a lot of speed. He's an excellent kicker, excellent passer. Expect him to probably make some noise. Got a lot of college kids that are coming home for the summer that will be playing with the Blues Sevens program. So that'll be a good time. Um, Let me think here. A few other guys that will be playing. Like let me think. Because the thing is, like, there's a lot of guys that don't play in the spring that come out for summer sevens that I'm just completely like on. Um, but yeah, I think Aaron Martin might be out there. Aaron Martin, notable sevens player. He played in Premier Sevens, that sevens league, that USA Rugby hosts. Um, he's uh he's really good at sevens, so he'll probably be out there. and just a few other guys. Yeah, what you have to watch for with sevens is speed and passing fluidity. And there's a lot of guys that will be competing for those starting spots. Just a couple that I mentioned, obviously Aaron and Gavin. Um, but there are so many others that will just be chomping at the bit. I mean, we've got a lot of guys. Holden Seeley is probably going to be one that will be a guy to watch. Um, you got Zach Cohen that will be out. He will probably be a good Q2, if not Q1 guy, and a couple others that were part of that spring season that will make some noise during summer sevens. So just a few potential standouts there. Again, practice begins May 16th, and they'll be hashing out the qualifying sides over these next couple weeks. Um, and then, as I mentioned earlier, we'll be going to the Kansas City Current game and tailgating it. Come say hi. Well, I'll let you guys know where exactly we'll be down at the Legends and Children's Mercy Park. Um, it should be a great time. We'll be having a lot of fun. Come stop by for a beer and chit chat. And yeah, just see what kind of the blues are all about. Another potential opportunity that you can get is our trivia night that will be happening on June 9th, Friday, June 9th. From 6:30 to 8:30. Um, Should be a great time. It'll be lots of great trivia provided by Big Five Trivia. They do a lot of trivia nights for bars around town. They're pretty good from what I've seen. We're gonna go check out their trivia at Lou's one of these nights. Lou's in Waldo, um, just to kind of get a better gauge as to what we're getting into. It's still kind of in the early processes of being planned. However, it's gonna be it's going to be a great night. It's been confirmed, and it's been booked. So should be a great time to do some trivia, meet the guys, and raise some funds. Because we definitely need. Sevens can get kind of expensive. um, but yeah, that's all the Blues news I really got. As far as Chiefs news, like I said, rookie minicamp started. Um, you know, it's looking like these were the correct selections so far. Um, as far as draft picks and UDFA's go, it'll be interesting to see who makes the cut from that rookie mini camp, and gets signed to the 90-man roster, going into training camp. And then from there, we'll see who makes the official 53-man roster. So, lots of guys, chomping at the bit. Again, my boy Dylan Thomas, I'm rooting for you, man. Hopefully, you had some great experience at that mini camp. I know that it looked like a lot of fun. It looked like hard work, and it looked fulfilling. So, hopefully, you got some good experience there. Hopefully, the rest of the guys, um, including draft picks and UDFA's alike, um, got some pretty ample experience in kind of their first, taste of the NFL and what it's all about. Um, but yeah, that's our show. Thank you so much for joining. Um, Gonna be releasing articles as scheduled this week. Everything's gonna be back to normal, I promise. Thank you again for your patience and your understanding regarding the events of this past week. Again, it's been real tough. Um, but I appreciate you all loving me through it, supporting me through it, and just being patient in regard to this um, this week. Um, you know, uh, Wanted to give a quick in memoriam to my good friend Brandon Elifritz. He passed away on May 4th of 2023. Much love to you, man. He was my friend of 20 years, 20 plus years. And he was just one of the kindest souls that you'd ever meet. and was a really active Burn KC community member. So I am feeling his loss, feeling the grief, but I'm working through it. And thank you very much for understanding and working with me through all of this. Um, but yeah, that's our show. Thank you so much for joining. This has been the Burn KC ScorchCast. Signing off. See you next Sunday.